Hello, my name is Zachary Berglund. I'm a graduate student studying food safety here at Purdue University. Today, we are going to be discussing why food safety is important, as well as teaching about upcoming technologies. We will then elaborate on guiding questions and resources for you to help develop a curriculum for your students to learn more about food safety. By the end of this module, you and your students will be able to correlate emerging food technologies with a reduction in energy waste, summarize basic scientific principles behind some emerging food technologies, use newer technologies and industry standards to mitigate risk in food production, and lastly, summarize a plan for the overall processing of a food item. First off, I'm going to discuss why food safety is important. Usually, when people think of food safety, they think of the recalls on lettuce and cases of food poisoning from the news. This happens because microbes start to grow and digest our food. With this fact in mind, I want you to think about a time where you had to throw out a piece of food that you had paid for. Whether it was a piece of moldy bread, or maybe it was a jug of milk that spoiled. Regardless, the state it was in was because some small microbes beat you to the punch in eating it. In many cases, it's not possible to know if these microbes are on the food just by looking at it. As such, eating them has a high chance to make you sick. At least in the cases where you can see it growing, you can avoid making yourself sick by tossing it. Though, I know I find it annoying when my food rots, since I just lost all the money I paid for the food. While this may seem like a minor deal for one piece of food, over time, this wasted food adds up. Not just on a singular consumer basis, but on a national basis as well. According to the nonprofit organization Feeding America, Americans waste around $218 billion on food, and this is an average of $1,600 a year for a household of 4. It not only costs you, the consumer, extra money, but it also wastes energy. All this food you toss away at one point was in a field that a farmer had to use numerous vehicles and tools that required gas or diesel to run. But not only that, after it was harvested, it required fuel to be shipped to a factory or shelf, and then it was processed. All these things add up so much that according to a manuscript written in 2010 by Kuehler and Weber, they found around 2.14 times 10 to the 18th power joules of energy was lost from food waste in 2007. This is enough to power 6,385 American households for the entire year. As scientists and engineers, we look at these data and try to understand what causes this problem and prevent it. With the main cause of being microbes, we look for a way to reduce or kill them throughout the food production process. Now, in order to improve existing technologies, it's important to understand what existing methods and technologies are used right now to keep food safe and keep food lasting longer. Personally, I think the best way to learn about this would be to learn about a process from the very beginning to the end, and a rough overview, of course. As such, I'll be giving you an example of how tomatoes get turned into ketchup, and some tools used to prevent spoilage and reduce waste along the way. So we'll start this journey at the picking stage. Tomatoes are grown and harvested. At this point, we must discuss the first measure of food safety, HACCP. HACCP, or HACCP, stands for Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. The purpose of it is to reduce risk to not only the consumer, but to the workers making the food. I won't go into detail on this presentation, but just know that each step in the process is guided by the principles from this method. One example is understanding what risk can occur when trying to pick a tomato, such as, potential pests or harmful bacteria existing on the surface. Then determine which methods can be used to reduce risk. One good one would be wearing gloves when picking. And then usually you would figure out a numerical variable that they can control that will be used to both measure as well as control the risk. When tomatoes arrive at a factory, tomatoes are then processed into tomato paste. This then gets shipped to stores and other factories. However, our focus will be on the process where it gets turned into ketchup. Once the paste arrives at the factory, it is squeezed, mixed with some water, and put into a large kettle. This kettle will stir and heat up the paste, and several ingredients are added. This part here serves as the first food safety technology. The process of heating, or pasteurization, involves heating a substance such that it achieves a set temperature for a certain time. This does two things. It will cook the ketchup. It will also kill any microbes in the ketchup. While this process is ongoing, vinegar, salt, sugar, onion powder, and several other seasonings are added. One ingredient of importance from this list is vinegar. This substance serves as a chemical additive that also happens to be necessary for the taste of the food. A chemical additive is a safe, edible substance that is added to a food to help it last longer. Vinegar in this case serves to lower the pH of the food, since it is an acid. This creates an environment where bacteria struggle to grow. After the ketchup is done cooking, it gets bottled and shipped to stores. These processes of preservatives and pasteurization are used in various food processing pathways to prevent several problems. This includes preventing the growth of Salmonella or E. coli, which these are primary reasons for several foodborne illnesses. Should these problems not be caught, they can cause outbreaks as well as spread to other foods if exposed. Now that we understand how some technologies work, we can look at new ways to help improve or look at new tools. I will be discussing one such technology, protective cultures. One similar practice to this is the act of adding probiotics to foods. One example of a food with probiotics you may have heard of is Greek yogurt. These foods are believed to replenish the bacteria in your guts and promote a healthier digestion. Now, the overall idea is that protective cultures use healthy or non-disease causing bacteria on ready-to-eat foods to help preserve these foods. While this may seem like a strange idea at first, protective cultures have been used long before we were even aware of it. An example of this is primarily seen in fermented foods, such as old-fashioned ketchup, or more commonly, alcoholic beverages. The process of fermentation is the usage of microbes such as yeast or bacteria to process sugar into alcohol and or vinegar. With the example of alcoholic beverages such as beer, yeast would convert sugars into alcohol, and in the past, these beverages would be drank while still containing the yeast. However, modern-day manufacturing has them removed or filtered out to help improve the taste of the beverage as well as the overall presentation of it. During the fermentation process, these microbes tend to create environments not suitable for other microbes to grow in, with the production of, say, vinegar or alcohol. Additionally, these microbes also compete with other potentially harmful microbes for existing nutrients. These attributes help keep the food safe during production and long afterwards, with the high alcohol percentage in the cases of alcoholic beverages. More recently, though, scientists have been exploring potential methods to add these cultures to many different types of food post-production. This will help extend the shelf life while potentially bringing health benefits from adding different probiotics. However, as of right now, protective cultures are currently limited in certain foods, as some bacteria can only grow on some food without causing spoilage. Currently, they're only widely used in dairy products and some meats. Additionally, these cultures can sometimes be closely related to pathogenic strains in the body, which can sometimes cause sicknesses if the body accidentally mistakes them for a disease. Additionally, since these cultures are living, there's a small chance of them dying while they're on the food. While this is just one future technology which holds the potential to be used in the future, there are many, many more you can explore with your students. However, this is a very broad topic, and it is not easy to incorporate or design lessons for your students. As such, we have compiled a bunch of resources to help you design your classes. These classes will be done to assist in the next part of this module, which I will discuss now, the design challenge. This design challenge will serve as an exercise and a demonstration of knowledge and engineering skills of your students. It serves as an opportunity for your students to work on STEM skills and use their creativity to help solve global challenges that engineers and scientists work to solve daily. The main challenge that we'll be focused on is meeting the need for a safe, long-lasting food item that can meet the growing demands of an increasing global population. In this case, you will need to develop a ready-to-eat food item that is shelf-stable. To explain a few of these terms, Ready to eat means the food is safe to eat without any additional cooking or processing. Example of these foods include bagged chips, granola bars, and pastries. What shelf stable means is the food item can last a while on store shelves. This challenge requires a solid grasp of understanding food processing and nutrition to solve this problem. As educators, you have free reign of the exact details of the food that is made, as well as the responsibility of enabling your students to meet this challenge. You will decide for your students what nutritional requirements need to be met for the food, as well as various other things. Some examples of these requirements could be any of the following: placing a limit on the calories from fat, requiring a minimum amount of healthy nutrients such as vitamins, fiber, or calcium, requiring it to be able to last on shelves for a month or two. These requirements and many others you can have will ultimately determine the difficulty of this challenge for your students. If your students tend to be more higher performing, you can include more requirements or even extra activities for them to go and take a deeper delve into this project. Alternatively, if your students tend to be on the opposite end of that spectrum, you can make it a little more simpler and have less requirements. Additionally, to help you guide the aspects that will be a part of the design challenge, there are several suggested activities to do with your students that is listed in the slide above. While these are good activities to work on as a whole, I also want to leave additional suggestions in regards to the topic of food safety. One big issue I personally feel is that the topic of food safety is very broad, and it's very easy to go down a long rabbit hole of information. To help guide you to teach a broad amount of information without getting overloaded, consider these following questions to design your lessons around for your students. I feel they require a basic understanding of food safety as well as how it can be used. So for example, the very first question: identify the ideal environmental conditions for bacteria to grow. If your students understand this, they'll be able to understand different processes and technologies and other rules and tools used to prevent bacterial growth. And lastly, to help use all of this, the very last question: develop a hypothetical technology that will increase the shelf life of food. This requires an extrapolation of information gathered, as well as imagination and creativity to kind of create a cool or a new process using real-life scientific principles. Lastly, this is a resource slide for a link for Dropbox, as well as some examples that will be in Dropbox. Throughout the time, we will be slowly adding resources in regards to different food safety technologies, as well as potential examples. For instance, some of the stuff that will be in this Dropbox will be included or is listed on the slide here, such as useful websites or videos, as well as different ideas for labs, both stuff that is on the very budget side and stuff that is more on the expensive side. That is all I have for you today. I'd like to thank you for your time to listen to my presentation. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or my advisor, Dr. Feng. We'd love to help if you have any questions. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.